Kia ora and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm Kathy O'Sullivan, editor for CIO New Zealand. My guest today is Peter Fletcher Dobson, Chief Digital Officer at Tupukenga Work-Based Learning. Hello, Peter.
Kia ora, Kathy, how are you?
I'm very well, and it's great to have you here to chat more about you and your role and your team at Tupukenga. So yeah, to kick things off, can you tell us a bit more about your organization and what you and your team do?
Well, Te Pūkenga is it's a new organisation, so it's bringing together all vocational education in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So that's currently separated amongst polytechnics and industry training organisations. So industry training organisations look after work-based learning, which is like apprentices, people learning on the job, and obviously polytechnics are more campus-based, and then there's a remote learning service as well, such as Open Polytech, where people do it all online. So under the government's reform of vocational education, they created Te Pūkenga to bring all that together into one national organisation. So that's going to be around 260,000 to 300,000 learners and 10,000 staff across the whole motu of Aotearoa, New Zealand. So it's going to be I think it's going to be like the 32nd biggest vocational education institute in the world. So it's pretty big.
Wow, huge, and a massive transformation going on there in the sector. So, you know, often transformation is talked about as something that's easy to do, but in reality, it's not. So how has that approach taken shape in your own career?
Yeah, so I've I guess where I apply my trade has sort of been between technology and the business, and so that's a transformational area always. So taking business strategies, translating them into technology strategies, finding the opportunities in technology, and relaying that back to the business. You know, I think the reality is, I think global benchmark is 80% of digital transformations fail, and so it's a hard area, and there's a lot of reasons why it's so tough. But for me, I've been 23 years now working in digital. So from the 90s, where the internet was just becoming a thing, kind of before Google, to now, and the change over that period in time has obviously been immense. You know, whole industries have been reinvented through digital. So digital disruption is both challenging and obviously hugely exciting.
So walking back from that end product of transformation, what do you think are some key steps CIOs must take along the way on a transformation journey? And is there ever a starting point to kick it off?
Well, yes. I mean, I suppose to take your last bit of the question. So the starting point's normally a crisis, or a crisis coming, and a business suddenly realizes that its business model is in jeopardy because there's some disruption coming that way. I think if your business is coasting along nicely, most people aren't really thinking about transformation. It's normally driven by very good reason that you need to change, and you need to change in a big way. And so as a CDO, CIO, technology leader, the key step is to have a really great understanding of what those business goals are. You know, what is your kaupapa, what's your purpose, and how does that translate into transformation? The worst thing I think a CIO or CDO can do is start to focus on the technology, because the technology is, in my mind anyway, the lowest down the priority order. It's really understanding what does the business want to do, how does that translate into a technology strategy, and really make sure that you're validating the problem before you're stepping on a solution. The worst experiences I've had with transformations are when somebody, it's normally a CEO, has gone, that's the thing that'll solve all my problems, and then tries to ram it into their organization. So that's for me, that's the worst possible way to approach transformation.
And that is, of course, that's a big challenge for any CIO or CDO. Are there any other roadblocks, do you think, that are kind of common to avoid along the way?
Yeah, I think that is that misalignment between the business and technology. That's another big one. So if you have that separation in your organization, and it doesn't necessarily need to be, on an org chart. Obviously, you have, technical specialisms and business specialisms. But if there's not that collaborative relationship between those two key, the business and technology, that's when you end up with, I didn't ask for this, what you've delivered type horrific exchanges at exec tables, and things really go off the rails. So for me, as I say, and where I work is absolutely between the two. And while I lead technology teams, it's the the business strategy and the understanding of how to translate that into the right solutions is key. And so you have to be business minded. You have to understand business strategies, what the goals are, what the purpose is, and then create a culture that has that collaborative mindset that filters down through to, even if you're a database engineer multiple steps removed from the customer, you have to understand what you're trying to do from a customer perspective and therefore from a business perspective. And I guess that's what I've always tried to instill in teams that I work with and in organizations I work with, that joining together of the business and technology is key.
Yeah, that customer-centric focus is so important, isn't it? So do you think, is there an end date to transformation? Do you think when you're transforming, it's useful to have projects with deadlines, or is transformation just an ongoing development within a business?
Yeah, I tend to look at it from an outcomes perspective. What's the outcome? And when you're clear on that, oftentimes you have to put some dates in there or timelines to achieve this thing by this, for whatever good reasons. But essentially, if you stop transforming, and I think this is where transformation is a loaded term in a way. Everything's changing everywhere all the time. That's how nature works. That's how the world works. That's how business works. I think most people think about transformation, it is from, I guess, a kind of a crisis mindset of, oh my God, we have to react and do this thing to get out of this mess, or to get in front of this disruption that's happening. The most successful businesses are continually transforming, so they're doing it iteratively. So it's not a massive leap to try and change from this to that. It's a continual process, and you have to bake that into the fabric of your organization. So you've got that curiosity mindset and collaborative working practices that mean you can continually reinvent yourself. Because if you stand still as a business, well, that's a recipe for disaster. And talk to any CEOs, they will not be talking about not transforming or not changing or not keeping up with their customer demands. So yeah, for me, it's a continual process.
So I'm glad that you mentioned collaboration, because I'm curious to know, as a CDO, in what ways are you collaborating and influencing your organization and its leadership team?
Yeah, I suppose it's for me, it's that focus on the customer. That's what we're all here to do, is to deliver customer value. Align that with an organization's purpose, what they're here to do, and then you can start having those meaningful and enriched conversations with other members around the exec table. If you lose sight of the customer, that's when silos start developing, and you start doing business with yourself rather than actually delivering on customer value. So that's my focus all the time, is when I'm talking with my colleagues in operations or marketing or finance or people and culture. It's always about, we're here to deliver to our customers, and that in my world is both learners, employers, but also the community surrounding both of those, and obviously our people who are working to deliver to those customer groups, the internal, external customers. So if we've got that focus, then we're literally on the same page, because technology is just an enabler, really, for what the business wants to do, and seen it as in that way, that sort of fosters collaboration, because you have to, and I think it also fosters a kind of servant leadership mindset that sometimes can get lost, and I think that's when silos develop, and that's when things start to go wrong.
So the role of CDO, CIO, CTO, it is an evolving role. So what do you think are some of the key attributes in relation to leadership of a successful modern day CIO? You mentioned servant leadership. Are there any other things that you think are really key when it comes to leadership in that space?
Well, I think you have to be able to inspire a group of people to rally behind a purpose, and so you have to be a reasonably good communicator to be able to do that. I think storytelling is probably a key attribute that you need to be able to translate clearly. This is what the business is wanting to do, and this is how where we fit in to help them to enable those business strategies. You obviously have to have a good knowledge of technology and I think live a little bit in the future. So I always think that the CDO should probably be living 10 years ahead of the rest of the organization, but being able to come back and empathize where the organization is at right now, so you can set that guiding star. But you've got an understanding that not everyone else is living in 2032. They're still here in 2022 trying to wrestle with all the problems of the business. But if you can get that right, I think that can be, for the right people, it's inspiring thinking about the future. You have to also be able to work with a lot of people that they're probably the reality is of right here and now is probably quite challenging, and so it's that balance. But I think inspiring, creating a culture that's transparent, that empowers people to be their best, and creates those sort of empowered collaborative working environments, working across the business. Yeah, I think it's the key thing for a chief digital officer is to be able to inspire a technology team to focus on delivering to the customer, not just for technology itself.
So just digging a bit more into culture then, how are you creating an internal culture in your organization that really helps people be their best, to thrive, to hit those professional and personal goals?
That's a really good question. So I think firstly, it's understanding that I'm definitely not the smartest or most talented person in the room. And that's building a great team that's diverse. So I think it's really important, and I'm highly cognizant that I'm a middle-aged white Pākehā male, and that's not the reality for most people, and so you need to create that diversity of team and diversity of thought around you, and from that all sorts of good things happen. You have to create an environment where people are empowered. So I think it's as flat a structure as possible, where you have really good, talented people who clearly understand the strategy and what we need to do, and then give them all the freedom they can, within the don't break the law type of mindset, to be able to get on and do what they need to do in the way they need to do it. I think that people talk a lot about, how do we get innovation in a business? And, I've seen innovation teams and innovation rooms and innovation roadmaps. And innovation, comes from people that are dealing with customers, or even customers themselves, God forbid, getting their wants and needs to a team that can then deliver to them. So the faster you can turn an idea and deliver that from an idea into a market, that's key. And there's nothing more exciting than working in a team where you're working with customers to solve their problems and being able to solve them as fast as possible. So it's creating an environment that enables that.
So I'm glad that you mentioned diversity, because IT does have an issue. There is not enough diversity in IT roles, especially through to the senior leadership level. So what practical things do you think can be done to get more people into IT roles and keep them in IT roles, and people that better reflect the Aotearoa that we live in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. So I got into a bit of trouble at a conference a few years ago where I was asked that same question, and I said, well, probably wouldn't employ people like me, which offended a large bunch of middle-aged white males in the audience, and I had to come back and say, well, look, obviously, you can't legally do that sort of thing, but the point I was trying to make was that I think in IT in Aotearoa, New Zealand, it's 20% female versus male, and it's 5% Māori Pacifica compared to which is totally out of whack with where we are. So I think you have to encourage the more diverse a team from all types of backgrounds, demographics, the better the output, because you get that diversity of thought. If I had a team that was exactly like me, I'd build great things for me, but that would miss out a huge chunk of the population. What I have found is that by employing people that aren't like me, sometimes they go and employ people that are like me, and it kind of balances out. So I don't think it's being discriminatory. I just think it's being smart to recognize the world that we live in is diverse, and so you need to have a mindset of saying, well, how does my team look compared to the community, the country, the world we live in, and does it match? Are we hearing those right voices from different parts of the community, the country? And if you're not, then I think you've got a problem. So I'm quite deliberate in that. I think having my leadership team is 80-90% female. We have a completely diverse team from multiple nationalities, Māori Pacifica, which is great, because that's representative of Aotearoa New Zealand. And when we're building products and services for our learners and employers out there, then we need to be like those people, and so it's key. Diversity brings enormous value, and you have to have a strategy in there that's not unfair. In fact, it's almost more fair to bring on board a team that's representative of the community or country that you live in.
Ka pai. So then, reflecting back on your own career, are there any mistakes that stand out that, when you reflect on them, they really shaped you as a leader?
Yeah, I think everyone thinks of those horrific moments, either in meetings or standing up in front of an audience where you've either dropped a real clanger, or things have gone sideways, and or projects that have failed, etc. So yes, I've definitely got plenty of scars from that. I think for me, my biggest learning has been, and it probably happened for me too late in my career, in a way, because earlier the better, is just being me, not trying to be somebody else. You have to be, as a leader, you have to be authentic, and that's been my greatest learning, is to be PFD is key. And I think where I have either tried to, where something's gone against, and to do that you have to understand your values and what's your personal why, what's your kaupapa, and how does that translate into the work that you're doing. So that's led me to want to focus on, my personal kaupapa is around tangata tariti. So what that means for being Pākehā in Aotearoa, and that's why being with Te Pūkenga is so marvelous as a Te Tiriti-led organisation, looking to create equity in learning for mostly underserved learners, and so by being understanding what my purpose is. That's led me to a place where I can really express that in a creative, exciting way as a leader, and I think that's key. You have to understand what motivates you, and how to be authentic in that, and then you'll find the right spaces to work for. I think where I've been the most unhappiest is where I haven't been true to myself, and that's when bad things happen. So that'd be my message and thinking.
So that's something that you found out yourself along the way, that you need to be PFD, you need to be yourself. And is there any career advice that you were ever given that really made an impression, that you're like, that's really the best advice I've ever received?
Well, I think that that be yourself because everyone else is taken. That was a light bulb moment for me. But I think working in, so I'm not I was a journalist originally, and I moved into tech in the 90s in the .com boom. My I guess the best advice is to understand they obviously who you are, but then what are the key strengths that you bring to a team, and what are your blockers, what are your derailers, and I think understanding that's that whole journey of understanding yourself. And you can get quite philosophical on why we're here on earth and things, but if you're not on that journey of understanding what you're about, what motivates you, it's almost like transformation conversation earlier. It's a constant job of reinvention, re-examination, checking in with you and yourself and where you're at. I've seen too many people burn out at exec level and also below, because working in as a technology leader, you're often constantly between a rock and a hard place. Businesses are wanting stuff tomorrow, and you've got lots of issues to deliver. So you have to be really grounded in who you are, and that you're working on the right things. And so I guess that's my key advice.
Great. And finally, then, can you tell us what's important to you in the months ahead?
Gosh, well, Te Pūkenga is coming together. So on January the 1st next year, the Polytechnic subsidiaries and work-based learning, which is a subsidiary that obviously I'm working in, all come together as one. So that's pretty big. And when you think about, there are hundreds of different systems across the whole of Aotearoa and the different organisations, some of which will need to be centralised, some of which are going to be operating regionally, some of which are going to be operating locally. that's a massive roadmap that we've got ahead of us. So we're just pulling together the longer term information services strategic plan, and the all that work that needs to happen to really raise the game for both learners, their whānau, and industry in Aotearoa. So there's a massive opportunity to create, knowledge services network that can really deliver what's needed to learners. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to be part of. So it's massive and full of all sorts of interesting problems to solve and customer needs to deliver to. So I'm feeling I'm definitely in my happy spot at the moment with a lot of hard mahi ahead, but working with some amazing talented people, and an organisation that's got a really strong kaupapa for doing the right thing by Aotearoa New Zealand.
Absolutely. It's a huge project, and we will watch with interest to see it take shape. Peter Fletcher Dobson, Chief Digital Officer at Te Pakenga, thank you so much for your time today.
Tēnā te mihi kia koe, kia